Well, I'm a history guy at heart, and so when they asked me if I had a lesson had something to do with liberty and health, I went to history. So in 1567, King Philip II of Spain appointed Fernando Alvarez de Toledo, the third Duke of Alba. You may have heard of the name, third Duke of Alba. He gave him the job of suppressing the Protestant Reformation in Holland. So Alba, as he was referred to, the Duke of Alba, appointed a council which he called the Council of Troubles. I like to think that he was thinking he was going to respond to trouble, but the population seemed to think he was causing more trouble than he was responding to. They called it the Council of Blood. And in the next 2 years, thousands of people died for a variety of political and religious reasons or excuses. One of them stands out. In 1569, a gentleman by the name of Dirk Willems was arrested. He had been baptized as an infant and baptized again as an adult. And that was a crime punishable by death. Sacral society was the norm all the way up until the New Testament. Every society on earth was a combination of government and religion, and that was just the way it was. Even Judaism, there was it was a single package. But as the days of the theocracy ended, Jesus did something really dramatic one day when a lawyer asked him a simple question: is it lawful to pay taxes? Now, of course, the question was a trap. They thought they would get Jesus no matter what he said. And Jesus did something that was very intelligent, actually. He said, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." Jesus had just split the sacral arrangement of society into two parts. That, unfortunately, was lost sight of in the Christian church going into the apostasy of the Dark Ages. And so we ended up with what came to be known as the Catholic Church. What does the word Catholic mean in its roots? I heard a lot of answers, but I didn't understand any of them. Universal or worldwide. Okay, so now the Catholic Church had a problem. If there was a heretic, how do they get rid of him? The only means of excommunication that the Catholic Church had was execution. They were in the world, and the Catholic Church claimed the whole world. So, get him out of the church, we have to kill him. Well, that was the state of affairs at the time. So Dirk was arrested as a heretic. He had been baptized. He was referred to as an Anabaptist, meaning he had been baptized again. Baptized again. They put him in prison, and in early May 1569, he managed to gather up enough rags to knot together. I don't know what story he was on, but he managed to climb down from his prison window via this rope of rags onto the moat of the prison castle thing, whatever he was in. The moat was still frozen. It was early May, and it wasn't frozen very solid, but it was frozen. And Dirk had an advantage. He had been blessed by a starvation diet for a number of months, and he didn't weigh much anymore. So the ice was enough to keep him up, and he ran across the moat and headed for freedom. But he was spotted by a prison guard, and the race was on. Dirk made his way to the Hundgat, the dog pond. It's still there, outside of Aspern, the town. And it's not a real big lake. It's kind of long and skinny, which made it ideal for his purposes. He could go across the middle, and anybody who wanted to go around had a much further way to go. How many of you have ever walked on ice when it bends underneath you? You know that feeling? When it bends and it cracks and you wonder how this works. Well, I live up in Canada now, And you get that at certain points of the year, and it's kind of fun. I usually try not to go, like more than 6 inches water under the ice when I do that, But so Dirk heads across the middle of the Hundgout, and the ice holds. It's creaking, it's cracking, it's flexing, but the ice holds. The guard in chase had the privilege of having been much more well-fed in recent months, and the ice did not hold for the guard. And suddenly there was a crack and a splash and cries for help. And Dirk Willems faced his test. What would he do? In the picture on the screen, Dirk is on the left. He was a follower of Jesus. He turned around, he came back, and he helped the prison guard out of the water. The Hundgout is a small lake, but in places it's up to 30 feet deep. So the guard was in serious trouble. That picture makes it look like, he's probably thrashing around in 12 inches of water or something. But no. It's actually a fairly deep little lake. And the guard was going to drown. There was just no two ways about it. Dirk Willems turned around and came back and helped his enemy. The guard is on record as saying, he's a good man, let him go. But the Burgomeister, I suppose in our illustration, one of these guys over here, his boss, effectively, shouted to him, "Remember your oath." The guard had taken an oath of loyalty to the crown and all of its various hierarchical levels down. And for him to let a prisoner go would be death to him. Dirk Willems was recaptured, taken back, imprisoned in the tower of the church, far too high for any rag rope to reach the ground. The prison guard had his test, and I would say he failed. 4 days later, I think it was, Dirk was burned at the stake. He gave his life on the 16th of May, 455 years ago. But 455 years later, we're still talking about him. That picture is the most famous picture from a book known as The Martyr's Mirror. How many of you know about The Martyr's Mirror? Wow. Not enough. How many of you know about Fox's Book of Martyrs? Okay. The Martyr's Mirror is the Anabaptist equivalent. In 1569, at least 20 other individuals were burned at the stake. Dirk Willems was well aware of what his fate was going to be when he turned around that day. There's a lesson in this. There are several lessons in this. Perhaps first and foremost is that I think Dirk Willems modeled the character of Christ. It is the character of God to sacrifice self for the benefit of others. We are in the process of learning that. God has been very gracious with us. We've learned some of that this week. Every one of you have given time and effort and expense and whatever else. And we are learning through remedial missionary efforts, Ellen White says. We are learning through the establishment of benevolent institutions, Ellen White says. God intends to confront the evil of selfishness in our hearts through medical missionary work. We are the ones who need it most. There are other lessons. What's the moral of the story? Well, perhaps this, for one. The effort to control another person's thought or belief will inevitably result in murder. Unless they cave, unless they accept the control of the compelling power, it will inevitably result in murder. The only intermediate steps that a compelling power has is, number one, the withholding of information, and number two, deception. If you can keep them unaware of the information, then you don't have to kill them. If you can deceive them, then you don't have to kill them. But if they become aware of the information and they are not deceived, and you are intent on controlling their thought or their belief, your end result, your end opportunity is to kill them. This is why Lucifer was a liar and a murderer from the very beginning. It says that in John chapter 8, verse 44. If you see information being withheld, if you see deception, if you see compelling force, just know that it is not the tools of the kingdom of heaven. Be aware and respond appropriately. May God bless you. May you demonstrate the character of Christ.